Sustainability crossed my path as a consequence of an initial disappointment, a shift from the technical world to the one of strategy and strategic thinking. I've always been interested in climate change, experimenting during my years of lab as a geologist, doing a PhD in Switzerland, trying to understand proxies for paleoclimate and for climate records. Yet there was a specific time while working for an energy company that the need for an international coordinator of a strategic task force on energy and sustainability actually arose. And I was called in and asked to move from a leading technical role to a leading strategic role. What did that mean? That basically meant moving from my chief geoscientist position to a different position that was that of leading the business side of the G20, the B20 actually, for energy, resource efficiency, and sustainability. As maybe you can imagine, I wasn't really happy at the beginning, and then talking and sharing with friends and colleagues, and also, of course, reflecting with myself, I realized that coordinating over 130 companies in the realm of energy transitions was actually something cool. And since then, many things became thrilling, new, entertaining, and actually allowed me to progress through big ideas, those ideas that actually contribute to the greater good, focusing on energy transitions and on sustainability. So somehow unexpected things happen, and what looks initially like an obstacle ends up being an opportunity and opening up towards unique and transformative opportunities indeed. So when you realize that a risk or a failure is actually an opportunity, just because you see it from a different angle or because you're in a different moment of life, you start looking at things differently. And since then, I've learned that sustainability is mainly evolution and implies lots of changes that have to transform us as human beings, and as human beings that actually construct different type of small or big organizations, and that are part of a larger project. And this is what I'm going to share with you today. I'm Elena Morettini, and this is my Globant session. And I hope we can dive together into the sustainability realm, understanding what that means for all of us. So to begin with, we can start by asking ourselves about what sustainability means today and the impact that sustainability has on businesses. I think it's also interesting to reflect on the role of technology in the matter and why we consider Globant as a front runner in this. And maybe you may know that in the past, sustainability has been considered as a nice-to-have practice, while today we all agree that it has become very much the core to every business. And the slogan by Kofi Annan, "Who Care Wins," summarizes sustainability in such a good way that today the equilibrium between people, planet, and the economic development is becoming indeed core to very many of the industries and the organization we work for. So today companies know that we live in a very dynamic market, and we need to think of sustainability as a transversal axis that confers to business a new strategy. And if we do not do that for every type of organization, sooner or later we will be somehow stranded. And sustainability today is more or less the same that was diversity and inclusion about 5 years ago. It's the new tendency, the new trend that you really need to embark on if you want to have your business staying relevant. And this is also because this is what society asks for. So the must for organizations and for businesses and for industry actually comes from the request of society, which is that of having companies evolving in their culture, in their purpose and in their vision, indeed reflecting what society is asking, which is a fairer or a more fair world in which the equilibrium between people, profit and planet is actually clearer, and it's more accepted and parameterized. So Globant has accepted that challenge since a long time, and today digitalization and sustainability go hand in hand, connecting businesses with the impact that sustainability has on environment and on society, and technology acting as basically a catalyzer and an accelerator. So in 2020, Globant decided to offer sustainability as a tech service and created the Sustainability Business Studio. Understanding that this is what was needed indeed for industries to move on in their sustainability path, and that those technology services could actually accelerate that path, bringing company to a new level of legitimization and basically authorizing and creating this new dimension of legitimate business. So there are very many areas where sustainability actually confers and grants to businesses a new legitimacy concept, consolidating and authorizing new ways of working, new products, new services that, as we said before, take into account this equilibrium of people, profit, and planet. So basically today, we can say that there is no business without sustainable business. So what is Globant doing about this? How did Globant get on to this new paradigm? At the beginning, we really talked a lot about the path that we wanted Globant to take into this new area of services, together with colleagues, advisors, experts. And we think that we can summarize what the Globant way in 2 words. That is the quantification and acceleration of the parameters that are needed to bring sustainability within businesses and reality of our clients' ecosystem. So basically, we created a trend that was the trend of twinning digitalization with sustainability. And we've been really pioneering that trend. And today, we're able to expand that to companies that form the ecosystem, of course, of our partnerships, of our clients. And basically, we bring in, at the same time, digitalization and sustainability so that companies do not have to do that path and that journey twice. They can do it all together. And that was indeed a good catch, the right time to do that. And what we see today is that this joining these 2 trends together basically allows company not to repeat the journey twice, being more efficient, being somehow also more thrilled in their path of innovation, and basically accelerating, because we really need to do that, sustainability in all its practices. Why is this so important that we accelerate to do that? Because we save resources, we increase efficiency, we build new metrics quite quickly, and it's basically a win-win for everybody. For example, if a company had a pledge of cutting emissions down or reducing emissions down 30% by 2030, in many cases, using the appropriate technology will help us eventually increase that pledge by maybe bringing it to a number like 50% in 5 less years. So moving a target that was 30% of reduction by 2030 to 50% of reduction by 2025. So actually the gain is exponential. So the other question is, when it comes to the technology that supports sustainability, how disruptive can we be? The future actually challenges us, and it's fun to think about how much it can be done and how we can continue improving. So the resources for sustainability used to come more from human resources, and today there is definitely a boom of technology and quantification. So a radical change in thinking. And at Globant, we decided not to set ourselves a limit. So we choose to broaden our opportunities and establish actions as front runners. And that's what we really think we are. So because of this, I think that it's important that we share new concepts, and I would like to share 5 of them to see if those can become somehow our targets, our new vision, our purpose. So for example, we've decided last year to join the Net Zero initiative as one of the first points that maybe it's important to clarify. And that means basically becoming carbon neutral by 2050 using science-based targets. That is particularly important because of what we said before. We need to have sustainability based on scientific and technological metrics and parameters so that it can be measured exactly where we are and where we're heading. So the science-based aspect of reducing emission represents mainly the E for environment of ESG. ESG is environment, society, and governance. And of course, we have to recognize that aside from the measurements, to attain sustainability, there is an aspect of governance that is fundamental for a company to become indeed a sustainable company. So today we also focus very much in the G of ESG, which is the G of governance, that basically needs new roles, new practices, new upskilling tools. And as a company, we really need to redesign ourselves around those themes of thinking, reinvention in terms of sustainability governance. When we achieve a comprehensive change, of course, technology helps us in mapping those successful cases in terms of human development. So everything is very much interlinked. It's the E of environment, the S of society, as we said before, for what comes from outside, and the G of governance that actually allows us to track the progression that a company is doing in terms of sustainability. And very many uses of technology do actually help us tracking that path. And it is very important that we can parameterize it so that we can actually follow and repeat what are the best practices and what are the new metrics that we really want to attain, becoming a more sustainable company every day. So we basically covered 2 points. And of the innovation that we wanted to talk about, there is a third one, which is very important, which is called life cycle assessment. That basically means that we need to understand end-to-end any type of process in order to basically quantify what its impact is in terms of materiality, in terms of environment, in terms of society, and in terms of governance. So we really need to spread the voice on life cycle assessments so that we all understand that every action that we take, every decision that we make, every new technology that we use has to have the quantification of its full life cycle impact and assessment. The 4th concept, very relevant, and of which we've been talking a bit, it's time. We really need to think that things change very quickly. And so we always have to have this concept of time in mind in order to be able to retrace our steps, understand what can be saved for us to stay relevant, and really move faster. So we have a world which is in 3D, but to that we need to add always the dimension of time, which is the 4th dimension. So have in mind that whatever we do, we need to go back and check if it's still valid today, and if it is not, just assess how it has changed through time and indeed provide the new change so that the tool that we're using, the processes that we're using are actually very adaptable to the new circumstances. So that is very important for a business to stay relevant, and also for us to understand the metrics of this change and basically make them real and move on. So we said that we were going to talk about 5 new aspects, and the 5th one, very relevant, is that of carbon pricing. It's not new in the sense that we have not invented, of course, but we need to start getting familiar with that dimension of carbon pricing. That means that basically today, every project needs to have a financial budget, a carbon budget, and related to that carbon budget, understanding how much does that carbon budget cost for us. So we need to take into account that there will be future taxes, there will be future constraints on emissions, and that we will have to pay for that. So it is very important that today, when we talk to clients and when we choose or screen projects among ourselves, we start getting familiar with this concept of carbon pricing. It's a new metric, and it has to be incorporated in every project or every decision that we make. So somehow these are the 5 areas that set the agenda for the coming years. ESG, race to net zero, the concepts of governance implicit in ESG, the material balance of the life cycle assessment that we've mentioned as 3rd point, the dimension of time, and this last issue on carbon pricing. Sustainability also dialogues with other issues of paramount relevance today in this very accelerated dynamic, and that is innovation, inclusion, leadership, and security. At Globant, we've just created a new version of ESG, which is basically ESG. And that I of inclusion, innovation, and impact implies that we include diverse talent into our journey of innovation. We are interested in innovation because of how disruptive Globant is, and the search for talent contributes to that innovation. We also work in inclusion because we're really interested in diversity and in the active management of diversity. I would say that the journey to diversity of talent is one that, of course, we've already started, but it's complex and we really need to step up and we really need to work on it. At Globant, we're doing that, and still organizations have somehow a long way to go in accepting that talent is indeed diverse, and there is an aspect of inclusions, as we said before, that really needs to take into account the most diverse talent, embracing it in collective actions and in the sense of belonging of a community. At that point, if that happens, and when that will happen, we will be satisfied with understanding and realizing that we've included everybody, the most diverse talent, into our businesses. And again, technology can help us in tracing that talent, in understanding where it is, in understanding how it is participating to a common and collective intelligence exercise, so that nobody's actually left out and we're all included in this talent pool that makes business and technology so relevant today. So this fundamental aspect of inclusion, of course, belongs to the sphere of human resources, but it has a fundamental aspect that can be tackled through the use of technology. One of the tools, the technological tools that can actually help us in mapping out how talent is distributed and how its inclusiveness is actually working is, for example, Start Me Up. Start Me Up is a platform that allows us to identify who is actually working actively in groups, who's more working in isolation. And of course, identifying that, we can take actions on inclusion and we can act on the process that basically ends up with a positive result of inclusiveness. So to accelerate this process, it's very important to recognize that, as we said before, talent is diverse and we have to accept it. We have to accept it as such. And that is why leadership has a key role in the acceptance of diverse talent and in moving those criteria that will actually make a new ecosystem viable for all different types of talents. So this is why leaders and decision makers, actually not only why, but also how decision makers in collective projects are transforming the industry and the organizations by creating new systems of rules to accelerate the road towards sustainability. Ultimately, the development of collective intelligence is the basis for the significant progress of present and future civilizations. Technology connects us today as never before and accelerates human capacities towards unprecedented levels. It is up to us to make sure that these capacities do actually follow the right direction. So thank you very much for accompanying Globant in this journey and for embracing sustainability.